Hello, beautiful souls and healing warriors. We're back.
Back in action.
I'm Samantha, for any of you who don't know.
And I'm Maria.
Yes. Um, Earlier we talked about, Father Day and the energy and patriarchal and all that. And there's a bunch of topics within that will be other sessions, but we want to really touch on mind over matter, or as Maria would say.
Heart over mind.
Mhm. Yep. Because we in life, um, our mind tends to control, like, has the driver's seat. And when we learn how to bridge the heart and the mind, that's when the heart is in the driver's seat. And that's when we are in that intuitive flow. Okay, it happened. So let's just keep on going, right? Rather than that one where our mind's in the driver's seat. And when something happens, it's like roadblock and complete road shutdown. Um, so I, I don't really know where we're going to go with this topic. Um,
So I
but
can start with
yeah,
by
go
saying
ahead.
we're talking about when our mind is in control, because when you said that, as soon as you said that, then I heard because we've been mind controlled.
Yes.
Literally, that's what came through. So because we've all been mind controlled since we really jumped into the skin suit avatar, our mind then controls us very unconsciously. So, as you start to go through different stages of your awakening and realize what your mind has been perpetuating very unconsciously over and over, that's when you start to wake up to your thoughts, right? And then you start to go a little bit deeper and say, where did these thoughts come from? Well, who, like, are these my thoughts? Where did I get these thoughts? Because with the thought, usually has you have a belief with the thought. There's a belief that comes with the thought. So then you start to break down your thoughts a little bit, and it can make you a little cray cray because then you go through a period of like becoming super aware of your thoughts and then thinking that you need to change them. And that's kind of how we're thinking with this whole mind over matter. There's a lot of talk out there about mind over matter. And there is a huge aspect of in the healing process that it is mind over matter, right? Like the whole umbrella is mind over matter. But when we're talking about mind from a consciousness standpoint, that is the blending of the heart and the brain. That's the coherent signal that goes through the heart and the brain. That's the mind. That's not just the thinking brain in the human aspect. The mind is all of it. So it is mind over matter here. But what we believe the mind to be has been very manipulated and controlled here. So this is why we continue to create sort of a fear-based paradigm in everything, because that's what we've been mind controlled with, is fear. So then our mind controls us to live in fear. And this is where, as you start listening to your thoughts, and then when you hit another level of now feeling the emotion that comes with that thought, you start to feel different energies inside of you. And this helps in the discernment process. This is what Sam and I talked about before, like discernment between higher self and ego. So when you start to allow your minds to just speak and you listen to it, then you start becoming aware of these thoughts. And then you go, okay, what's the emotion that's tied to this thought? And it's usually something very uncomfortable. And then we go through this phase of like, oh my god, now I need to change all of my thoughts and my emotions. And that's where this process of like healing and ascension, I feel like, can get tricky and confusing for people and can feel very draining. Because yes, on some level what we want to do is adopt new and expansive perspectives. So yes, we want to expand that mind, but it's a process to get there energetically. That's how I'm going to start this. And I feel like intuitively you're ready to jump in.
I'm just processing it all because our mind, our mind can be like a little trickster or like a best friend, right? It can be that gold, or it can be like that 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 what's that black crystal that kind of like sucks everything, right? Like, and when we're going through things in life and we're feeling good, right? And then all of a sudden something happens. and it's like you get stirred off course, and you're like, wait, um, how do you perceive that halt, right? So, for example, just now, we Maria and I were in our conversation where it was going, it was great, right? And then as soon as we ended the call, I had to go do something. I had to show up for. Something happened literally right then that brought up huge amounts of anger within me and childhood memories that I've worked really hard on healing. And I allowed, but I let myself feel the anger. And I told Maria, I was like, I wish I could just leave my body again. But I was like, that's not living, right? So I allowed myself to state, I'm angry, I'm frustrated, I'm pissed. And and I have to go show up for something. Like, how do I navigate that? Right? How do I not go into that situation with this energy? And I realized once again, it's just energy. But I had to let my parts know that the mind's not in control. Like the mind, when we say mind, it's like our parts speaking up. It's like egoic self, right? And I realized, okay, I could cancel tonight. I could not show up and sit in it and deal with it and then try and understand it. And then I realized I can't understand what just caused me to be angry. I can't. It's not me and it's not because of me. It's just my reaction because it was a childhood trauma that brought up. So instead, I shuffled my feet on the grass. I expressed that I was angry and I shifted. And I was like, okay, I can do this. I can show up tonight because it's that mind over matter. But it was really, my heart was like, hey, hey, it's love. You can't control it. It's not meant to be controlled. It's not your problem. So, like, what do you really want to do? And I'm like, oh, I want to show up for this thing I have to do. That's what I really wanted to do. Not dwell in it and allow that roadblock to really block me completely. And all of a sudden, like, becoming like quickly realizing that, which it wouldn't have happened that quickly in the past, right? But it's through that internal work. I was like, ah, oh, I'm good. I can show up. And that is that mind over matter. It's when something happens, how do you react to it? Do you allow yourself to react and dwell in that reaction, or do you observe that you are reacting and then reflect and be like, why am I reacting? Why am I so angry? What's coming up for me right now? Right? Or like sitting in traffic and you're driving behind somebody, you're pissed. It's like, well, why? Why? So you can continue your day being pissed, or you can be like, okay, why am I pissed? And then bring your heart on board. And I guarantee once you bring your heart on board, that anger or those emotions or those parts of you in your mind that are like stay angry, stay stressed, are going to be like, "Oh, whoa, you're bringing love up? Oh, whoa. I love love." And it starts to calm and you can go back into like your flow. Um, and in the world, we live in a very stressed world because everyone's living in this.
Yep.
And I don't actually mean this whole thing, but more the left brain, the analytical, egoic, conditioned self brain.
The conditioned self,
Hmm.
the
And
conditioned
that's the part that
mind controlled self.
yeah, the mind, yeah, that's it's been mind controlled. And um when civilization first happened, like that's not even in textbooks, when consciousness, we were creating humans, we didn't have left brain. We only had the right. We only had the creative, loving flow. That's all we had. And then we evolved, and like that's the other side started developing, and then it became the control. And when we realize that we have control over our own thoughts by bringing our heart on board, it's a freaking game changer. Because we can get through anything. But we need to honor what's coming up for us.
Right.
And that's when we get the mind out of the freaking way, bring the heart in, and have them be friends
Yep.
rather than shutting the mind down.
Right. It's getting them to communicate in a like therapeutic relationship. And once you do, it's like they realize they really both want the same thing. They're just coming at it from different energies, different
Yeah.
intentions, but they both want the same thing. And when they can both get on board, that's when you really become what I believe a conscious creator, right? We're all creator beings. And like we talked about in the previous video about how God, source, energy, whatever you want to refer to, it's in all of us. So we're all we've always been creating since we came into the avatar, but we've been mind controlled to create the paradigms that the powers that be want us to create. So the more you feed any thought out there as a reality, we will create that. And the more people, the more skin suits walking the planet that are doing it, it creates it as more of the collective reality. That we are creator beings. And this is what they don't want us to know, because then when we start to realize that and take power back over our own energy and realize we don't have to control anything in the external, when we have power over our own energy, and then we become so empowered and so powerful, but not in this superior way like we were talking about before. We're empowered now.
Yep.
So now we're empowering others, right? Like we're breaking out of the mind's control. But it's deep. It's
So deep.
very deep, because even though I know this, even though my mind, my awake mind knows I'm mind controlled, I'm still mind controlled. I
Mhm.
still have programs, deep programs that I'm working through that are conditioned, limited beliefs. Conditioned, limited beliefs. Anything that stops you from being happy and healthy is a limited belief. It's all everything that's limited is the 3D matrix. That is the 3D matrix. If it
Mhm.
is anything that's limited, it's you hear about that's 3D mindset. There's limits. There's cutoffs. There's an end. When
Mhm.
in the reality of quantum, which is this reality too, it's limitless, and that's what the powers that be that have controlled us don't want us to know. Because once we all realize we're limitless, we don't have to play their game anymore. We start consciously creating the game that we want to play instead of playing in one that has just mind controlled us from the start.
Yep. And that was said so beautifully, by the way.
Thank you. It just flowed through.
Yeah, because that's the heart speaking, right?
It
That's the very,
is. It's
yeah.
like, it's just like, yeah, like, yeah.
And our third eye, which is our pineal gland, pituitary gland, where it sits in our brain, it's actually the divide between our left side and our right side. And the more we
Not a
live,
coincidence.
yeah, you cut it open, it's the eye of Horus and Ra. It's Egyptian wisdom. Um, but the left side, right? Like if it's so loud, it starts to what's the word? Not crust. Oh, calcify our pineal gland. Our pineal gland is our intuition. It really is our trust. It's that deep wisdom. That's what that third eye does. And all of the medications and all that, it's really shutting it down.
Yep.
And but we can unshut it and uncalcify it by bringing the right side and that love more on board. And Maria and I, we love Joe Dispenza and a bunch of other people that are all about positive thinking. And we realize that positive thinking is sometimes very similar to what we were talking about at the very end of the last video of the gaslighting, right? It's okay. It's okay. And it's like, okay, but if it's not okay and you tell me it's okay, it doesn't make me think that it's okay. You're just shutting that part up that is not okay, right? To feel something that it doesn't want to feel. And so when we're going through traumas, Maria knows more about Joe. I listen to his, a lot of his stuff, but she's like more into him, more like understands
Yes,
more.
because he teaches the heart brain
Yep.
coherence. So
Mhm.
he does understand that it's beyond the positive thinking.
Yep.
But I feel like he does a good job that based on where everybody's at, because when you first, like for me, I needed to hear that before I could understand that the heart played a role. It was like, oh my God, my mind, my thoughts are creating my reality. Like, yeah, they are.
Hmm.
But it's like I needed to hear, okay, so I need to start changing my thoughts. So that was very beneficial for me in the very beginning of my healing. And then I realized that that only got me so far. I was like, wait a second. Now I'm like just trying to like force thoughts into me that like my body and emotional being doesn't actually believe. So it was like creating this like, ugh. And I'm like, oh, that's where they talk about the heart brain coherence. That's why it's getting the two in alignment to speak coherently.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And because Maston Kip, who I mentioned in the last one, he's trauma coaching, and he's taught with Joe Dispenza and all of these major psychologists and um, so many people that people go to these big things and watch and listen to, and they get a lot of healing from it. And it only goes so far though, because but it helps you wake up. It gives you some empowerment back to like, whoa, I am the creator of my reality. Whoa, right? Like Maria's saying. And Masson taught me, yes, our thoughts control everything. Our thoughts, though, are all of those voices that have been, as we were growing up, and shut down. And those are living in our body in different areas now. So when you can connect with them through your heart and your intuition and your love, that's when your mind like starts to become rewired in a different way. And
Yes.
that's that love way. And so now you're not just sitting there and being like, okay, let's think of like rainbows and butterflies when I'm really like in the middle of a tornado right now, right? Because that's not going to take you out of the tornado. But what's going to take you out of the tornado is like noticing where in your body are you feeling there's a tornado happening? Like, because that's where we also developed illness, where we're the parts of us where we're neglecting that energy. Um, because our nervous system, we have our aura, right? Our nervous system is like a radar. And when Maria talks about like our emotions, they come from beliefs, right? And but that comes from feelings of unsafe that develop into patterns and behaviors. And when we're growing up, since we're born, our nervous system is a radar. It's like above, below, and all around, right? So above and so below.
As above, so below.
Yeah. And so what it's doing is it's very unconscious, but as soon as something feels unsafe, because energy, we are all energy. As soon as something in your energetic field feels unsafe, whether you're aware of it or not, and you don't listen to that intuitive hit, right? It's like, oh, it's not safe. And you're like, oh, let's brush by it. That same stimuli or that same energy, no matter like what environment you're in, your body remembers that you didn't listen to it and that's unsafe, and it takes that in. And then when something unsafe does happen to us, like trauma, and if we don't deal with it, that causes it sends an impulse, a current, right, up through our body to our brain. Our brain then is like, oh, unsafe radar. We release all of these hormones, and which are the fight or flight, right?
Yep.
Or we go into shutdown. It depends what the trauma is and how you cope. And then from there we develop beliefs around what's not safe, what's safe. We start to develop emotions around it. And it's all from the chemicals in our brain that are really like our human bodies are genius. Like they're so genius because all it does is protect us.
Yep.
And that's all our brain is doing, is trying to protect us. And our heart is also protecting us, but protecting us in a way of like going into love rather than fear
And growth,
and growth. Yeah. And
expansions.
expansion. And when we start to realize that everything's energy and that our mind isn't just in here, but it's part of our nervous system, it's a part of around us, we can really choose what we allow to affect us. And we really start to listen to our intuition and be like, oh, I feel something's off over there. And then check in with that. Because maybe there's really nothing. Maybe it's a beautiful horse, but something in you doesn't feel safe. And let's say it's your elbow, right? All of a sudden you like you feel something in your elbow. You connect to it. Your mind is going to tell you the thought and behavior and whatever why you're feeling unsafe. Your brain's going to tell you. And then you connect with it, and that's when your heart's on board. And then you start to rewire your brain because now you're touching your body and you're starting to realize that horse isn't what's unsafe. It's a memory or some belief. Like you could have been reading a book as a child, right? that had horses in it that you loved, and then you hear your parents fighting, and then like maybe something was thrown. Your nervous system felt unsafe, and you unconsciously now think that horses are unsafe because of what happened in your external environment. So it's not the horse, right? But when you see a horse later and you're like, "Ooh, what's going on?" It's because your body and your heart is trying to tell you something trauma happened in the past that you need to check in with. So the more you do it, the less that you fear the horse or whatever it is, right? The horse is an example.
Right. And I think it's a beautiful example because I feel like there's a lot of people, and myself included, especially when I first started taking energy classes, the psychic classes, and trying to discern when was I really feeling energy of something external or when was my own energy essentially being triggered and I was having a judgment based on a fear. And that was a perfect example because a lot of people that I work with, they're all at different stages of their own like rememberings and tapping into intuition versus what's a limiting belief that I just believe that's going to happen because that's just my pattern of thinking, right? And that is such a good example because a lot of people are like, they always think that they're reading bad energy from people. Like that's what I always hear. Like it's always in a bad connotate. Like I feel the bad energy, but sometimes it's not necessarily like that. There's nothing wrong with that horse, right? But it triggered something inside that triggered a memory that then released those same chemicals, those same stress hormones. And I actually feel like in Joe Dispenza's Rewired series that's on Gaia, he goes very, very well into depth how this works on our nervous system. And it creates almost a high effect that this is why we thrive in sort of a stressful environment because of the way we've been mind controlled to be in a stressful environment. So our body is actually our nervous system is used to getting that high. It's looking for that high. So even when there's not something threatening, it's the mind is creating something to ignite that stress response, those hormones. So this is also very helpful knowledge when you are going through discernment of are you reading energy or are you feeling something in you that's merely being triggered by something that's sparking a memory. And that's where the why comes in. Like, why am I feeling this? Like, what's like, check in and ask your body, ask your heart, because your heart is always going, once you start asking your heart, like, it's always been on board, but now you are consciously asking your heart for the guidance. So it's like ding, ding, ding. And the guidance feels very different than what your mind has been telling you. It's like, oh my God, I've been speaking for so long, and now you're like asking, so now I'm gonna really give it. Like, but it's a very gentle, like empowering, expansive. It just feels different, and that's what helps you start to discern when it's just your thinking, analytical mind, like we're talking about, versus the heart space energy that you hear people refer to.
Mm-hmm.
And it's wild because the mind really holds on to what we say is the negative because like Sam said, it's protecting us. It thinks it's protecting us. It holds on to these memories so you don't have to repeat that again. It's like thinks it's protecting you, like, oh, I remember this, this will never happen to you again. But in the reality of it, it's anchored into it. Now it's anchored that belief into you somewhere. And so now actually you end up create that's karma. That's all karma is.
Yep.
It's your thoughts and your emotions that you're sending out, you're getting recycled to you in life experiences and situations. That's all karma. There's no good karma, bad karma. It's all energy. Whatever signal you're sending out, you're getting back. And so that's where that heart brain coherence, and I learned heart math meditation very early into this awakening, and thank God because that helped me start getting those two in line and realizing when was I really reading energy, when was I just being triggered by something, like because it's like it's almost like another program I would hear in people like I always feel the bad energy. It's like, oh my God, but there's so much fucking good energy. Why is nobody ever like, oh my God, I feel the good energy? It's like, holy shit,
Right.
it's always bad because
Yeah.
again we're programmed to focus and go, it's the bad, it's I feel the bad. But like trust me, being sensitive, I've also felt so much good through these abilities too throughout my life. Yes, my body's held on to a lot of the trauma of my own stuff, but I've also been able to feel all that joy that people feel. Like it's like when you were talking about that thing before, like going to weddings and when you could actually feel, and I hate to say it, but when you could feel that the couple actually loved each other, because I've been to weddings of all kinds. And but when you could actually feel that, like I would get so emotional, but
Oh yeah,
in a good way. Like it maybe looked like sad, but it was just like, oh, I can feel what they're feeling for each other, and it's
love.
solid. It's like it's authentic.
Hmm.
So reading energy doesn't have to all be bad, people.
No.
Just saying.
And since you said weddings, I had the honor to do a blessing at my friend Sophia's wedding. She just got married in South Carolina, and I was honored. I was like, "You want me to do a blessing? Like, I don't even really know what that is." She's like, "You know what you do before we eat?" And I'm like, I don't, because it's just it goes right. But I was so nervous because I knew I could feel their love, and I didn't want to mess it up on their beautiful day. And I was like, "Oh God, who am I to give a blessing?" Like, but that was parts of
Ego.
it. Yeah.
One of the parts that doesn't feel worthy.
Yeah. And I'm like, if she's asking me to give a blessing because she sees something and she knows that I can do it, and like I know that I can come from that love and I'm able to remove myself. And so right before I was like, oh my God, I like took some wine or whatever I was drinking. I was like, oh my God. Oh yeah. And then like I didn't know when it was gonna be. And then like, and we're gonna have Samantha come out for the blessing now. I'm like, yeah. Oh my God. And all my parts were like, and then I was like, wait, heart, come on board, higher self, let's go. And it was immediately coming out of it because I remember when I would speak in public in school, I was like Maria was saying, I will not call, like I don't want to answer a question. I knew the answer, but I felt like I didn't know it, so I wouldn't, and I don't want people looking at me. And then when I would do presentations, I'd be beat red and I'd be shaking and
Oh God, yeah.
yeah, like
Shaking.
I'd have
Ugh.
a huge fucking rash. Like it looked like I just had a cherry head. And I'm like, wait. So that's what I started to think of. And I was like, wait a second, no. No, no, like fuck that. I am
Hold
worthy.
me.
Yeah.
Hold me.
Yeah. I was like, I am worthy to give a blessing. And she is worthy to receive whatever it is, because it is all love here.
Never talk
All love.
about that.
And then so I went up there and I honestly blanked out. I just let spirit take over and let my when I say spirit, just my higher self, right? And my heart. And then after I was like, oh my God. And then everyone came up to me and was like, oh my God, that was beautiful, blah, blah. Kevin was like, that was. I was like, I don't even remember what I said because I just,
That's when you know it's really your higher self,
yeah,
because you're like, ah, it wasn't in your thinking mind, so there's no memory of it. Yeah.
yeah, it wasn't in my thinking mind. I just allowed it to come.
Yeah.
And then it all started coming back to me what I said because when I stepped back and was the observer once I was done with my nerves, right? But I didn't turn red. I didn't shake. And I was like, ah, mind over matter, heart on board, right? Like, okay, minds, we're bringing the heart on board here. We're not that scared child anymore. Like, no, that's not the way to live. So let's bring love on because we're in a loving place. And you know, it doesn't matter even if you're not in a loving place, you can still get your mind offline by telling your heart and telling your mind,
Take
you're not
over.
in control.
Yeah.
You're not in
Yep.
control. Sorry.
Yep. That's a perfect example of mind over matter, then heart on board. Because you first were like, I can do this. So there's that positive thinking, right? Even though inside she's like, oh my God, no, I can't. Oh my God, can I really? But you're like, I can do this. So there's the mind. And then as soon as she checked in with the heart, I know without a doubt the energy shifted in her body, because that's what I'll do when I'm in those sort of predicaments. And as soon as you call that heart in, it's like you feel it, that shift. It's very noticeable.
Hmm.
It's like, oh God, now I know who's no. Oh, this feels better.
Hmm.
Oh, this feels better.
Hmm.
Yep.
And I feel like that's too where like addictions come in because all those chemicals get fucked up in the brain.
Yeah.
And then our body, like we were saying, we like feed off of that. Like we're chasing that, right? And what people don't know, that dopamine, joy, when you really allow yourself to experience joy, it gives you the same dopamine high. It gives you that same high that drugs do that you're chasing. to receive.
Yep.
And um, joy literally does the same thing. Joy is considered bliss, and in ancient history and wisdom, joy is bliss. Joy is grace. Joy is peace. And the more you allow yourself to experience joy and understand why you're not allowing yourself to experience joy, what's unsafe about joy, that dopamine starts activating quicker and quicker, and more is being released, and all those those serotonin up. We don't have to get into all the things because people are probably like, what are you guys talking about? Those fight or
The
flight things.
stress hormones,
Yeah,
yes.
stress hormones. They start to settle down, and you're like, ooh, I don't have to be, I don't have to be fight or flight all the time. Like, because I know what joy feels like, and I can bring joy on board. And joy is literally when I connect to my higher self. And I'm constantly in a state of joy now rather than depression or sadness or anger. Doesn't mean that I don't experience those things, but I know how to experience joy now. And that's just literally allowing myself to be and not letting my mind take over all of my shit every day. And even yesterday, when me and Maria were in our shit on Father's Day, so many emotions, right? I knew it'd be okay on some level because I knew how to experience joy. I knew that joy still lived in me because it was my heart. And our higher self is not our mind and our thoughts.
Right. There's that inner knowing. Same with me. Even though on every level I felt like I was dying, I'm not going to lie. Well, I really did. But yet, there was still that deeper inner knowing that I was like, yo, I got this. And just like Sam, I've already found inner peace. I know what it now feels like. It ain't going anywhere. And if I really want to anchor that feeling longer in me, then I have to allow these residual things to keep coming up because they're residual energies that still need to be heard and felt. But because I've experienced that bliss, that euphoria, it's like I've been there, and I know there's no way I can't get back there. Like I'll be back there tomorrow. I'll be back there. It's okay. This is just energy moving through me. I'm not these things. I'm not these thoughts. I'm not these emotions. I'm not these experiences. They are part of my journeys, but they are not me. They are not the essence of me. And so when you start taking their power away, that they're you, they start losing their control over you, and you
Mm-hmm.
just allow them to flow through.
Mm-hmm. And another time that we really need to have mind over matter is going back to nursing, right? When you have to show up for each patient. So you put yourself on the back burner, right? And no matter what's happening with each patient, you have to treat each one individually because their what they're going through has nothing to do with the other patient. So it's really like, okay, mind over matter. I got to remove myself from that. Now I got to go into this one. But that causes a sense of resiliency, right? Being able to shift quickly and knowing that you can shift your mind to like be focused, be there for somebody. And when you do that though, you're neglecting yourself. But that's the world and society we live in. We are taught to neglect how we're feeling and to be resilient and push through. Go to the next thing. Don't pause and breathe and like check
And
in with yourself.
experience it. Just keep going. Keep going.
Hmm. And when you're in the hospital, you're sick or you're just in states of sickness. Sickness doesn't have to be physical, right? Um, and you have everyone around you who only talks about the sickness. That that's just feeding those thoughts that you're sick, you're sick, you're sick, you're sick, you're sick. So it's very hard for you to be like, no, but I'm okay. Like, yes, part of me's sick. But when you have everyone around you saying you're sick, all of your parts and your nervous system's like, whoa, we're sick. Like, we're sick, guys. So it's so important to know that when we're sick, not all of us is sick, but our mind wants us to feel that, right? And when Maria's talking about, and yesterday, like, because she physically feels everything, she knows she wasn't sick. She knows that it was energy moving, but it was stuck in a lot of places, causing a lot of physical pain. And she allowed herself to be in it. And because she knew, her higher self knew she could deal with it. It wasn't going to stay like that. But when we stay in the mind thinks that we have to stay in that suffering, and we
Hmm.
don't.
And then the mind will also tell you, this keeps happening. You keep going through this, blah, 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 like all these things, right? That's what the mind will do. That's when I start to spiral because my mind, once my mind takes over, and even though I'm aware, like it still can take over. It's a very aggressive, powerful thing. Um, and when it does, it can it's so loud. It's just so loud. Um, but like yesterday, yeah, it would try to like convince as soon as I'd almost anchor in this like, oh my God, peace. I just found peace again. Boom, mind would come in. Boom, all these thoughts would start coming in, and I'm like, oh my God, why? I just got there. Dude, I just finally got there. And then it's like, no, but you haven't. Because again, it was just showing me again. So once I start surrendering, because I still will fight the process as it comes up, even though I'm just prolonging it, I still fight it. Once I slowly start releasing the need to make it all go away, it starts to naturally go away. It's like, oh my God, now it's just going away because now I'm constantly rewiring my mind in the sense that, like, when I have a negative thought, immediately following, I'm telling myself I'm not this thought. So it's still allowing me to have the thought. I'm not negating the thought. I'm not hiding the thought. I'm not telling myself I'm not having this thought. It's like I'll allow the thought, but then I remind myself, but I'm not this thought. But I am not this thought. I am not this thought. That I
I
am
am.
thing, whew, that'll
I
be a whole
am.
nother topic for another day. But that whole statement of I am, how we've been so that's what's it's such a powerful statement, but it's been used in such a manipulative way here and in a very disempowering way. So it's just like how we identify with every label we put on. I am this, I am that. We're none of any of those things. Those are experiences and roles we've played for the experience and for the learning, but we're none of those things. And I feel like you brought up the healthcare thing at a good point because it's probably it is. It's going to trigger a lot of
All
healthcare
of our
people.
videos are going to trigger somebody.
I don't
They
care.
probably trigger us.
Healthcare workers need to know this because I
Yep.
wish I knew this when I was still very much in the system. I mean, taking care of patients. Because I touched upon it earlier, how nursing was the most toxic environment I've ever worked in. It was the most toxic environment.
Hmm.
And we're taking care of people. Hello?
Oh, I have crazy chills.
Hello?
Yeah.
What
Hmm.
are we actually doing when we're taking care of these people? When we are perpetuating a toxic work environment with our coworkers, with our superior, with everyone, and then these people that are coming in already sick, already wicked disempowered, already inundated with their own fear and disease and shadow, and then we're perpetuating this. And I know I am not the only nurse that's worked in toxic nursing environments, and I know there's going to be a lot of nurses that watch this that are like, holy shit. Yeah, that's our own spewing shit out because we've been programmed to put ourselves on the back burner and show up for our patients. Well,
Hmm.
guess what? Just because we're physically showing up, we are not doing a service to our patients. If we're going in with shit energy, we're bringing it right in to an aura that's already very weak and disempowered. And now we just sprinkled it in from somebody that's supposed to be a caregiver.
Hmm.
We haven't learned how to take care of ourselves first, and now we're running around and taking care of we're understaffed, so we're always taking care of way too many patients to begin with, even if we are in an empowered state. Like, what the F?
Yep. Yeah. It's
Why
terrible.
I started nurse coaching, the nurse coaching program, is because there was so many nurses waking up to the paradigm of you've got caregivers that are just as sick as the patients.
Yep. It's terrible.
I've worked shifts sick, and I know there's many of you out there that have been forced. You've been mandated. Let me use that word because that's what it was. We were mandated to work because there was nobody else to work. So I'm gonna go puke for a second, and then let me push my med card around and give everybody their meds. Come on,
I love
healthcare.
your voice when you're like, when you're part of
Whatever.
you is like making fun of things, your voice is like
I guess that's one of my parts.
I love it.
That likes to sit on stuff. But like, come on, what like it doesn't make sense. None of it does. Like this skewed healthcare, the whole healthcare system's a joke, but like then we're the ones that are in it are so sick mentally and emotionally. Like we all are. We're drained, we're overworked, we're and like Sam was saying, we're in an environment that all they know and all they talk about is sick. Nobody's talking about the like. Tell me what feels good today.
Hmm.
Like, tell me what actually like I can read your chart. I know what feels shitty. I don't have to come in and like I know what feels shitty. Yes, please share it with me, but why don't you also tell me something that feels good? Because
It's so hard
you're
for them to do that.
ingraining the patients with that same limiting belief. Those diseases that we get labeled with, those are the most disempowering limiting beliefs that we attach to, and then we continue to manifest that in our body physically. I know this because I did it. I did it. So I do know this from my own journey that this is how it happens. I
Hmm.
gave my power away to every disease that I was told I had. And
Hmm.
then I kept putting in this stupid blind faith into medicine. Give me a new med that's gonna. Every med gave me 80 other ailments. Like,
Like, come on.
come on, hello, hello.
It's beyond the truth though. And I like I don't know how many times because like energy doesn't lie. We say this all the time. I don't know how many times I've gone into a room and well, first off, if you have a room with two patients in it, right?
They're
And
already, they're already transferring energy back and forth.
yeah, and then one person gets bad news, that other one, that's in that person's nervous system. That person can hear it. I mean, there's only a little curtain in between people.
Yeah, that the privacy curtain, dear God.
Right.
Oh my
And
lord.
how can you not? It's like okay, I hear that. So now how do I shut off my mind from thinking that that's possibly me? Like, oh my God, I have the same type of illness as her. Is that going to happen to me or him? Right? And I don't know how many times I've gone into rooms and like I'll see someone else I work with who has an attitude and is like putting that on the patient. It's like, what?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what are you doing? And it's like, read the room. Or going in and like flickering all the lights on at 3 in the morning to like do something. It's like, come on. We are never taught that that true human aspect. That's why they say nurses are angels, right? Or like we're whatever we are. Because we do have this compassion. We wouldn't be doing that job if we didn't have this compassion, right? This human essence, because it's what we're literally craving in ourselves, honestly.
That's what exactly. That's why we so badly want to be of service to humanity and other humans because it's what we're craving for ourselves 1,000%.
Yeah. And I went back to school to get my master's degree because I wanted to learn how to teach future nurses how to empower themselves and how to be able to heal and how to like reflect before even getting on the floor and how to communicate and not just communicate with others but communicate with themselves because compassion fatigue is a real fucking thing and people say
Totally.
it's burnout but it's not. It's compassion fatigue and I've written so many papers on it. I'm very passionate about it because not only are nurses feeling compassion fatigue but everyone that's in service, teachers, right, cops, like whoever that are,
Military, all of them,
yeah,
all of those that are in service to
yeah,
humans
to
in a
help a great
job that
good.
is specifically in service.
Hmm.
Yes, they're all feeling that a
Yeah,
thousand.
and we are not taught how to check in with ourselves. We're not taught coping skills. We are not taught coping skills. No way. The coping skill we're taught is it's okay. You'll get over it. It's like,
Just go do this. Just
yeah,
numb it out.
yeah. Or it's like, don't cry, don't cry. It's okay, don't cry. It's like, no, I need to fucking cry because that's what my mind is like. Dude, cry, 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 right? Or like your heart. I don't even know which one's saying it, but like it's healthcare and so many industries are so toxic. And it's not our fault. It's because we weren't taught the tools. But the tools are within us. It's a matter of remembering them. But like we don't even know how to do that anymore. Like we've gone so left field, right?
Yep.
That we don't even know that we can do that. We think it's impossible. And being in when I was on the, 'cause I did oncology, the doctors when it like when the new interns or residents would come who've never been in oncology, like they have know nothing about cancer, and they want to like try and control this person's what's going on, and they don't want to give them pain medicine or something. It's like you don't understand what they have. Like you're not even allowing yourself to kind of empathize, but they because they don't know. They just don't know. And their mind is in that book. They look at, I don't want to say all doctors, right? But um, medical schools teach that we are all the same in a sense, that our bodies are the same. The only thing they really teach is a little bit of genetics and DNA, which I mean, it's a
Oh God, and it's such a limit. Oh God.
it's
Again,
we
this goes back to the system that we harped on earlier. It's all manipulated to teach us these limiting things. So then we go into our little roles as the nurse and the doctor and perpetuate it to all of you people
Mhm,
and ourselves.
exactly. And we because we don't know the difference. Like we all have this inner knowing, we just shut it off or eventually listen to it. And I don't even know where I was going with it, but like
Compassion fatigue is how you were really starting to talk about.
yeah. And
Like,
doctors get
like
compassion
it.
fatigue too, but it's it's more like doctors work literally like 7 days a week and have 1 day off. How is that healthy, right? How can they make rational decisions for patients and have empathy at the same time when they're working literally 7 days a week for like 4 months and then get 2 weeks off? Like,
Exactly.
how does
And
that
yet,
even?
then we, as the healthcare consumer, are going to them, putting all of our trust in a human that
Mhm,
has been taught by a system that wants to keep us sick and suppressed,
mhm,
right? Like, majority of us that went into service to humanity roles are in it with the right intention of compassion to help, because again, it's what we're saying, we're striving for that for ourselves, really. But we've been manipulated, mind controlled, how this whole thing started, by the systems that want us to further disempower each other. So
mhm.
it's not to say that doctors are bad, nurses are bad. You're all mind controlled, okay? You just are. I'm sorry. You are. And you're perpetuating disease in self and in patients until you realize that's what you're doing. And for me, like when I was in that nurse coaching program, like every person in that was in from all different aspects of nursing. They all had the same story. And it's the same story I read on my Facebook page of all the people that I've known throughout my nursing career. They're burnt out, they're exhausted, they have compassion fatigue, they have not taken care of themselves. They're trying to tell patients how to take care of themselves when they themselves are falling the hell apart.
Sorry, I muted myself because the dog. Yep, they're falling apart. And it's like and then you're being inundated with all of these every day there's this new like policy, there's this new this
Ugh.
then the pandemic happens and there's all these new rules and all of them are literally going against science and everything you learn in school.
Well,
but
yeah.
but
Exactly. Hello.
but since the father the system says that this is what you do it. You're shutting down that heart brain coherence. You're shutting it down to survive at work, to make a paycheck, and then to like help the person. But like, yes, I don't. Yes, I believe that we're helping them by being there for them. But um, we can only help people so much. We need to help ourselves first in order to really help them. And I think there should be like this whole thing for nursing and for doctors, like a year of like just internship of learning how to do self healing so we can really be in service. How can
Mm-hmm.
we really be resilient in the sense of not pushing shit down and like bringing both on board and using that intuition of like, hey, I don't think that that patient needs that. I think this is what they need, so let's try some breathing techniques, or let's try this like CBD numbing balm instead, rather than like a quick fix for something, right? But we're not taught that. because our mind and our brain is always given, here's a textbook, do what the textbook says. That's the right
Here's a
thing.
list of symptoms.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the disease. So here's the pill that Big Pharma is making a buku money on. So that's what we are doing in the system of healthcare. Unfortunately, that's what we're doing.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And
So, my guidance to all of you that are still in the system, this is not a judgment that you're
no.
still part of the system, but start to become aware of the energy that you're bringing into your workplace, into your patients' rooms. That's how you can start just becoming aware of your own energy. And that helps you be of better service, I think, because you're going to take maybe a pause or a breath before walking into a room. Put yourself in their shoes. What is their chart say of the 5 gajillion diagnoses and 8 million meds they're on? Like they're not doing so hot. So if you're also going in with an energy of not doing so hot, it's not really helping them. It's really not. And so call out when you're sick. I know it's hard because you're guilted into coming in or you're guilted into staying another shift. Take care of you because you're taking care of people
Yep.
that are very vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
And
And if you're not in it, right, they can feel that. And I would literally spend, rather than sitting out in the nurse's station, a lot of times I would just sit there with the patient, even if they're sleeping, and just let them know that I'm there. And because they are in such a vulnerable state, and everyone that comes in that room is putting into their mind that they're sick, that there's something wrong with them. And I never really understood when they're like, well, the longer you stay in the hospital, the more sick you get. I'm like, how is that possible? It's like the cleanest place. But once I left it, I realized the true meaning of that. And I hate the saying of sticks and stones may break your bones, but words will never hurt you. Total opposite. It's complete bullshit because words hurt the most because it brings in those fears, it brings in those beliefs, right? It brings in things. So how you word your words and your energy behind your words, and no matter what business, no matter what setting you're in, is powerful shit.
yep,
And if you're using your words from a state of heart and grace, that is medicine. That's healing. Rather than, and I'm not knocking anything because I do believe in a lot of different medicines, right? Rather than going into a room being like, hi, how are you, and then half-assing that you're listening to them because you're thinking about the next assignment you have to do or the next thing you have to do, and you're popping all the pills, you're putting in a thing, and you go, here you go. It's like that person wasn't even seen, and it's not like your fault. It's just like you have another patient. It's like, oh my god, I have this, I have this. You're not, no one's being seen. You're certainly not being seen, and the patient's certainly not being seen. No one's being seen. It's total mind control, unfortunately.
yep,
It's fucking sad. Excuse my language. It's sad.
yeah.
And it's not just the healthcare. Mind over matter is everyday life.
No, it's exactly. We use healthcare because that's where we came from. That's the system we came from. So it's our best, well, it's our experience. And
Mm-hmm.
it's just so for me, like, I do. I really wish I knew this stuff when I was still very much doing the hands on patient care. Not to say that I regret, I mean, I know I was a great nurse. I know I was a very compassionate nurse. I know all of that. Like, I had a lot of patience with my patients. Like I could deal with the most. I loved the crotchety patients, to be honest with you. Like they
Me
were
too.
kind of my faves. They were kind of my faves. Just saying. So I definitely carried the empathy that I feel good nurses project. But I also know that I'm a human, and if I was working in a toxic work environment, and having toxic relationships with the people I worked with, there's no way I wasn't on some level bringing that into my patients' rooms. And also, the patients are feeling it regardless if I walk in or not because it is now the environment of the nursing home or the hospital or whatever the establishment is. That energy is just floating around in there regardless. So they are feeling it. So it's stressful to be in that line of profession, and when we're stressed that's when we react, and that's when that all that happens. But just maybe you get anything from this, and you're in one of these roles, these professions, just start becoming aware of when you're reacting in the work setting, where you're putting your energy, what energy are you giving out to your patients, and maybe start your day with like, I wish that like every healthcare establishment was like sort of mandated to do like just a 5 minute mindfulness with the whole staff. That
Mhm.
would create such a coherent relationship with everybody that you work with by going in and everybody taps into the heart and the mind and does a brief mindfulness for 5 minutes where you do breath work. You do breath, you center, and you do it as a team. And now you go out into the fields as a team and you go in with a very different mindset than everybody that's coming from their individual houses with their individual problems, and they're walking into the work setting that's already very stressful and they're not centering. Imagine if you all did that as a team every day before you started the workday. Holy shit.
Mhm. Yeah.
I hope somebody does it.
I was trying to get it on board, and I will say, at my hospital I worked at, they tried a few times, and they tried to finding ways that people could take little breaks. And but it came to a point where it was like, we gotta hand off your page, and now you gotta sign in, and like my patient needs me, and oh, money, it's not in the budget, blah blah blah. It was all these like,
Yeah, they make it so you can't actually do it. But
mhm,
imagine if you, as the humans that are working in these professions, came into work 10 minutes early specifically to do your 5 minute mindfulness with your work team, how much more effectively, and not to mention how much more pleasant your work day would actually go. Holy shit, it would actually benefit you. Amazing.
amazing. Hmm.
Amazing.
It, mm,
So when you're fighting with those policies that come in that, oh, you don't have to, nope, nope, no time for this mindfulness shit. Time is money.
mhm,
And you know what? How do you work around that? Then you go, okay, then guess what? Everybody's coming in 10 minutes early. Everybody's coming in 5 minutes early.
mhm.
Everybody's making time for it before they go past their first pill.
Yeah.
Ah, I just knocked over
And
my water.
in 10 minutes really isn't that big of a deal, right? It's
No.
it's it can be the most therapeutic healing experience in 10 minutes. It's all about the intention behind it. Like, I really need a reset for the day. I got to a point where I would, on my entire drive to work, I would be like, okay. Because I ended up like not wanting to go. And it was killing my soul. Like, well, my spirit in my human body. And so I would call in the energies and be like, all right, just support me. And I would pull into the parking lot, and I actually didn't even care if I was 5 minutes late for work because I needed to center. I needed to ground myself in order to show up for my patients. Because it came to a point where, like, I knew I wasn't showing up for myself. I didn't know how deeply I wasn't because I needed to work. And then I realized, oh my God, I don't even want to go into a patient's room because I can't take it anymore. Like, the fire, it's so toxic here. No, there's nothing good happening at all. No one talks about anything good. And as soon as they do, someone's like, "Oh yeah, well this shit show happened. How does that feel?"
Exactly.
It's like, why is it so not okay to talk about things that bring us joy? Why is it so easy to talk about things that make us angry and sad and are drama? I hate drama. And that's that toxicity that Maria and I were talking about earlier, right?
Oh my God, yeah. Oh Lord, yeah. I'm having flashbacks of
Yeah.
my PTSD from being a nurse.
Yeah. And I used to tell people when they come to give me a report, they're like, "Oh, this one, blah blah," and I'm like, "I don't want to hear that. I don't want to hear that. I do not want to hear your bad experience with the patient because that's putting a thought into my mind that this patient is crotchety or whatever. I rather looked at everyone as a clean slate and went into the room with no expectations, because that is also the power of your heart coming in. When your mind's inboard, you have all these expectations. You expect certain things. You deserve certain things. Your heart doesn't think like that.
Yeah.
Think like that.
Doesn't feel like that at all.
Yeah. And I just looked up mind over matter because I just wanted to see what it said on the definition, right? And it says, used to describe a situation in which someone is able to control a physical condition, problem, etc., by using the mind. So his ability to keep going even when he is tired is a simple question of mind over matter. And then I thought about, well, what is matter, right? Going back to science, matter is energy, right?
in a very physical, like what we're talking about. It's dense. It's all the energy, like the thoughts and the emotions that we can't see. When you bring it down, down, down in frequency, it creates matter, something that you can physically
Mhm.
touch, taste, sense, feel.
So if we're in that mind over matter, it's like, oh, my mind's always in control because it doesn't matter. Nothing else matters because my mind's in control. And that's like just the saying alone has caused limited beliefs within us unconsciously. If you think about it, like, holy shit, like epiphany right now. Because matter is energy.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it is. And if we know that we can manipulate energy, like for our best and our highest and best, game changer.
Yep.
But we're taught that mind controls the energy and the matter, which it does, but we're taught it in a very
Limited.
suppressed, limited way.
Yep.
It's like,
We're taught that the mind is actually limited. That's the whole thing of it, where the mind is limitless. But we're taught these limiting beliefs. So in turn, we think the mind is limited, but it's not. The mind is what's created this whole earth plane from a very higher perspective. The consciousness, the mind of source is what created this, all of this. So it is mind. But what is mind? It's more than just the human brain. Mind is the
mhm,
consciousness, which is the
yep.
soul, the heart space, the spirit, the all of it, the experiences. It's the all of it, the real true mind. It's not just the brain. Like when we talk about the left and right side of, that's the brain, that's
Yep.
the human organ, the brain, where the mind is, to me, it's the consciousness, it's the energy that's outside of it. But that to tap into the reality of it being limitless, you have to realize all of the limiting beliefs that have controlled our mind.
I'm glad you said that because I'm like, the brain is not the same as the mind.
Correct. Correct.
And if you, like in Gaia, and you can YouTube these things, but there's people that like get hooked up to all the electrodes, right? And when they're listening to a meditation, so they're not even thinking, right? They're just listening to a meditation that's calming. You can actually start to see, like on the screen, the
Training.
electricity, the firing, right in their brain, going to these dopamine receptors, going to these other things, and it's actually very healing the body. It's healing symptoms, and it's because they're not thinking. They're just allowing themselves to be, and they're going into imagination worlds, right? Whether it's a guided imagery or whatever, or it's sleep, and it's super powerful because our mind, that consciousness Maria's talking about, like in Sigmund Freud and Erickson, it's like you have all different levels to your consciousness. And the one that's the densest one is what's kind of in our consciousness right now, which is our thoughts, that right, that we think that we can't control or that we don't have control over. And when we can put those aside, that's when all those the firing and the rewiring of our brain comes on
Yep.
to bring our consciousness, our brain and our body back into balance. But it's a matter of allowing ourselves and knowing that we can do it. Because if you look at your brain and then you see this, like let's say you take an eggplant. I don't know why I thought of an eggplant. Right, whatever. Let's say you take a peach, because a peach has two sides, kind of, right? And you put it in a bag. And imagine like that bag is the mind. That's the consciousness around it, right?
Right.
And then you have the peach. The peach is the brain. So the consciousness is, because it's in our aura, it's sending signals to that peach inside that bag, right? Sending signals to that peach. Is that peach gonna rot or is it gonna be good? Is there a worm in it? Whatever, right? And then when we can bring, let's say my arm is going down to my heart, right? But our heart is still consciousness. It's just it's the higher levels of consciousness, and our third eye is too. Then we can really, that peach can multiply and make like tons more beautiful peaches just by allowing and trusting that it can do that, rather than being like, oh, that peach has an expiration date, it's bad, it's gonna rot. Damn right it's gonna rot, because that's the signal you just sent to that peach that it deserves to rot. It's going to rot now.
Yep.
And that's what that consciousness is. It's that around us. Like if you look at Mother Mary or like Buddha or all of the majority of the gods and goddesses and deities and stuff, they have this ring around their head, right? This thing
Yep.
that I feel is like the consciousness fields and
Mind.
different layers. And
Mind, not the
yeah,
brain mind. Yeah.
yeah. And that's
Because
the
to me,
enlightenment.
yes. And to me, because to me, it is the human brain that is the thinking part of the mind.
Hmm.
So it's the analytical part. So it's the part of the human avatar, skin suit, whatever you want to call it, that is part of this physical vessel. That is that the brain is the thinking part, right? It's that analytical, holding on, but it also drives the nervous system's memory as well. But that mind that we're talking about, the mind over matter, is yes, that I love the peach analogy. Like,
Yeah,
oh
right?
my God, I could see it perfectly. And it was just yeah, it's the peach is the brain, and the bag outside is that the mind, the energy that's much bigger than just this little puny brain, to be
Hmm.
honest. The brain is very limited. The
It
brain
is.
is limited until the mind and the heart start getting signals to it that you're not limited. But we think it's limited because that's what we've been mind controlled to believe.
Hmm.
But the brain is just an aspect, just like the heart, the organ, the heart is an aspect of the body, but the heart chakra center is an extension of that organ. It's the energy field around it. So it's working in unison with the organ of the heart, too. That's why, also, like when you have a lot of grief, heart disease, that's all, it's a lot of broken heart, meaning there's a lot of unbalanced energy in your heart center, and it manifests as heart disease,
Yep.
heart attacks,
Hmm.
strokes. It's a lot of unresolved stuff in your heart space.
Which
And a
is
lot of that came
not
through.
showing that love to
Right,
yourself.
right. And yeah, that just randomly came through. But yeah.
Yeah. And if you think of like take the peach right inside the bag and then you start poking holes in that bag, like it's those little like epiphanies, or it's like it's the other states of your consciousness kind of seeping in, right? That crown chakra opening. And it's like that third eye now coming on board. Because you're poking holes in the bag. You're like, whoa, I'm not just limited to this bag. Oh my God, there's so much like a groundhog or whatever, right? Like boop, coming out of the ground, right? It's like, wow, there's so much here
Oh
actually.
my God.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Oh my God, they put me on a calendar. Wow. Groundhog Day.
I have a whole day.
I didn't even
This
know
whole
that.
day. This
Yeah.
whole day. And I
I'm just in this tunnel under here. I didn't know that. That's cool. These humans really love me. I didn't know that. Right?
oh God, I love it.
And it's
Oh,
it's really like because the brain can rewire. It can rewire to send all of this healing to our body.
yeah,
Once we get our consciousness, we are aware that our consciousness has been in the driver's seat. And it's like, okay. Because knowing that we're all energy, that's that true mind over matter, right?
yep,
Heart on board.
yep.
'Cause-
And it's getting in the heart that the heart trusts, right? The heart doesn't live in fear. It trusts. It trusts everything.
Mhm.
So when you're tapping into the heart and and your mind is now made contact with the brain, now your heart is just trusting it. And so it's like, boom, shakalaka.
Boom, shakalaka laka. It's
And you start
beautiful.
becoming conscious creators. And that's what I feel. Many of us are here to remember that we are creator beings. We have been since we were birthed into the skin suit. It's just that we've been creating the paradigms that the external wants us to. And that is all fear based shit.
Hmm. And
Limited, 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 limited,
very limited.
limited, limited. Limiting beliefs are just like, oh, good God, they're in everything. Like, I remember when I really, I'm like, oh my God, everything's a limiting belief. Oh my God, the whole earth plane is a limiting belief. The whole damn thing is a limiting belief. The whole 3D matrix is a limiting belief.
Hmm. It is. Yep. The whole, yeah, it's mind blowing.
It's one ginormous limiting belief.
And when I
And
think about
yeah,
like when the
dismissing it.
brain goes dead, right? Your heart's still beating. Like, why is that? Hmm.
And how about all the people that have been in comas or brain dead, right? Their consciousness is still experiencing their consciousness. They're bigger mind, that overmind, that mind connected to consciousness source is still very much alive and having its own multidimensional experiences.
And I've
So none
connected,
of that.
it's insane. I've connected to people that are in coma, and when their family reaches out, and I go to my higher self and my guides, and I ask, can I connect to this person? And then I will literally see the person usually sitting outside of their body, staring at their body. Like, what is going on? Like, what are all those tubes in me? Like, what the hell? But they're literally outside of their body, and that's like those near death experiences, right? And I'll have a conversation with that person while they're outside their body, see what's going on with them, right? Introduce myself first off, see what's going on with them, and then see if they want to come back in. And then the guides usually come in and do a little healing on them so they feel safe going in their body. And then either they wake up or they now pass peacefully, but they leave me messages to give their loved ones because they don't realize that, yes, we have a brain in our body, but like our brain can die and our heart's still going because our heart is really like that pumping vital force to us. And until our heart really dies, that's why taking care of yourself and loving yourself is so important, because it's not until your heart dies in this physical human skin suit do you
The body
die
dies.
in this physical
The
human.
body dies. Yeah.
Yeah. Like you're still there. So a lot of times if that person is sitting outside their body and then the heart stops, right, that person's stuck, and that's what Maria's mentioned before. And because they didn't realize, like, oh shit, like I'm dying, or like, whatever reason they're in coma. And when I would have patients that were passing and the family would be talking around and like be upset or whatever, or if I didn't know the patient that I'm taking care of them, I would ask the family to share with me fun stories about the person, because that person can still hear, like their consciousness can still hear its nervous system, even if they're not able to talk, right?
Yes.
They're still
Oh
in
my
there.
God, that used to drive me nuts. Being in
Same.
patients' rooms that were unconscious and just between staff and family that would just carry on conversations, and it's like, oh my Lord, like, yo, they can hear you.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah.
But that's a matter of not being taught that we're
Mhm.
energy. That's it. So we love you guys.
And there we go.
Yeah.
There's mind over matter and a whole bunch of other little fun tidbits that you got along the way.
Because whatever's going on in your life, no matter what happens, it's a matter of just checking in and being like, why am I being affected? What's going on with Sam? What's going on with Maria? What's going on with Bob? What's going on with whoever, right? It's checking in with that and then seeing, okay, is that my heart, or is that like my mind, or is that a thought? It's like, what is that? Is that a limited belief? But it's checking in with it, because the more you do it, the more those holes pop in that peach bag, and your higher self and your consciousness expands, and you start to like heal, and those thoughts aren't loud, and then you can push through things without fatiguing yourself by pushing through, because you're pushing through by in a state of alignment to your heart, right, and not just pushing through because it's what you need to do, right?
Great, you're not bypassing. You're actually going through it. There's a difference.
Mm-hmm.
There's that resiliency, and it's funny that you brought up resilience because that was a huge topic that we covered in the nurse coaching program. Because again, nurses are resilient, but we're resilient in a way that like,
Unhealthy.
no, not good. Like no. And when we started to really like hone into like what does resiliency mean to me, like where have I been resilient, and there's definitely there's the resilience, like we're saying, of just powering through, but you're actually bypassing the experience because you're not allowing the whatever it is, the emotion thought to really deliver its message. So you're pushing, you're powering through, but you're bypassing the actual experience of it, and then your body holds on to it. So then there's that resiliency that you keep going, but that's why everybody gets burnt out eventually. You eventually burn out. The candle, the flame, it burns out because you can only keep powering through like that and sort of lying to yourself for so long. But then there's the resiliency of like, I'm going to keep going, but I'm going to keep going through it very uncomfortably.
And that's when the peach becomes bruised in numerous parts.
Yep.
And the bag starts to suffocate the peach.
Yep.
Yep. because
Yep.
you're I really like that the bypassing because we're taught to bypass.
Right. And we think we are physically powering through because we're still showing up, right? So we think we're still carrying out the task or whatever. We're still hitting the goal, but we're powering through and we're not powering, we're not allowing the energies to move through. We're bypassing the experience, the energetic experience of it. So then the body's holding on to it. I've never explained it this way. This is just coming out right now.
I love it. I think it's
But it's
beautiful.
like
'Cause
that's
I'm
how I'm
seeing all
seeing it.
these highways and like you in the middle and then all these highways and it's like because we can go we have so many potentials and I'm just thinking of like the bypassing because there's so many times in life we're on autopilot. Autopilot is bypassing.
Right. Exactly. And that's honestly what, by the time we're 35, most of us are on autopilot. We're programmed, remember? So we're on an autopilot of our program.
Hmm.
So we're like, oh my God, I'm on autopilot of a program on top of a program on top of a program.
And when you're watching, right, when you're watching like all those pointless you like not YouTube, but like TikTok or whatever, right? If there's nothing educational, you're just watching, which is fine, like we're humans. But if that's all you're consuming, that's controlling you. That's controlling your mind. That's controlling you to think that all this joy lives in this device with all these strangers and doesn't live within you. And that you can't sit there with yourself for a little bit and realize like, what do I need? Oh, instead of asking what I need, I'm gonna go on and just scroll and see what everyone else in the world's doing. That's also bypassing.
It's a distraction. Yep.
Mhm.
It's a vice. Another vice. Again, oh my God, the amount of vices I've awakened to inside myself that I never realized. Like, did I ever think sleeping was a vice? No. And then I was like, well, shit, sleeping's a vice. Because when do I do it? Why do I do it?
Shut down.
Now I'm learning to do it just when my body's tired. It's like you need to sleep. But like before, I was doing it to like try to fly away from this reality.
I
And then
was
I'd
doing
wake
that
up and
too.
be like, oh my God, I'm still here. Oh my God, it still hurts. Okay.
I was doing that too, nursing. I was like, oh,
Oh
I have a
God.
day off. I'm just gonna sleep for the next 4 days so I have to work again. And really, I learned it wasn't because I was super tired. It was because I didn't want to deal with life.
Yeah.
Because sleeping felt safer than opening my eyes and going out in public and hanging out with people and having conversations that people didn't want to hear that I wanted to have a conversation about. Like, I wanted to talk about deep shit. I don't want to talk about drama. And so I was like, I'm just going to sleep. Fuck it. I'm just going to sleep. But I was ignoring myself by doing that too.
Yeah, same. I became a very good sleeper with my years.
Not a bad thing, right?
I'm a really good sleeper. It's not really something to be that proud of, but hey, it is what it is. At least, at least I know it now. And I'm a master sleeper.
Now wake the fuck up.
Now wake the fuck up.
In the words of Ed Gingras, wake the fuck
Exactly.
up.
Hubby's listening to this, so he knows I'm a master sleeper for sure. He's like, well, you mastered it. Hey. Yep, I
Here
did.
is your crown, madam.
But Matt, and you know what's funny? In my a lot of times in my dreams when I'd be sleeping, this is when I sort of realized like what lucid dreaming is, and like when you wake up in a dream and realize you're in a dream. For years, I would wake up in dreams and be like, I keep trying. I knew I was in a dream, so I'd keep trying to like wake up me here. And I'm like, I just want to wake up. I just want to wake up. I had no idea that was my higher self saying, wake the F up. But it literally was until I was like, oh my God, that's why I just wanted to wake up because I've been sleeping my life away.
Welcome to
Oh,
reality, Maria. You are a human. Time to wake
it's so
up.
true. Oh my God, what an epiphany I just had. I was sleeping my life away, and my higher self was like, "Wake up!" Okay, I'm like,
And the
okay.
bag has been removed. The peach now sprouts.
This peach has sprouted.
Princess Peach. Love
Oh
it.
Lord.
Well, we love
Well,
you, beautiful souls and healing warriors.
yes, love you. Thank you for listening to our craziness.
Yes. And just remember to check in with yourselves every day and see what you need and see if you can just bring your heart in a little bit more each day.
Mind over matter. Heart on board.
Heart on board. All aboard. Heart coherence. Love you guys.
Oh, yeah.